Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here. Welcome back to episode number 29 of the In a Crowded Room podcast, where we are once again going to do a Q&A in which these questions have been supplied to my email, or I pulled them straight off a comment board, or somebody has sent them through my Facebook or through my Instagram. It's kind of a big hodgepodge from all of you guys. So I will jump right in and we will get to it. Here we go. Chris from Virginia says, no more softball questions. Straight up, did you ever fake evidence on Paranormal State? If not, who would have been the most likely person to fake evidence on Paranormal State? That's coming hard, Chris. No more softball questions. Has it been softball questions at this point? First off, I've never faked evidence on anything. It's kind of one of those weird questions because if I was a faker, I'd be lying to you right now. But no, I have not. And I think everybody knew that if they faked something around me, that I would expose them in 2 seconds. I've never understood the concept of faking things because you're faking you then. Like, you know what I mean? Like your whole being is a lie. And that's just not how I roll. So that's my honest to God swear on the soul of my daughter, I've never faked evidence. Who would be the most likely to fake evidence on Paranormal State? Well, I mean, there's not a name I could point out, but to be completely honest, if I had to choose and say what area would it come from, it would come from the psychics because that's where things can so easily be faked. They would just have to have information before they went in. Having said that, did I ever witness that? No, I did not. Just want to be very clear about that. I never witnessed anybody give the psychics any information. I never witnessed anything that for sure I could point at and say that's a fakery going on. But that's the one place where it could happen the easiest, and no one could know for sure, and no one could detect it for sure unless they found some sort of communication to them before filming. But I never saw that, and that's the truth. If I saw anything on Paranormal State that was fakery as far as the cast goes, I would absolutely tell you guys. And with the crew, I've already talked about it. The producers and all that stuff, the fakery that they would try is just to try to get us to side on the paranormal. They would give us very little time to actually look at things and then try to push us in a direction. But we were also aware of that, so when you're aware of what somebody's trying to do, you can combat it pretty easily. So anyways, thanks, Chris. Vicky, and I didn't put down where she's from, so she might not have included it, but Vicky says, you seem like you have a great wife, as 25 years is a long time to be with the same person. Indeed, it is, and yes, I do. So thank you. But Vicky asks, have you ever had bad times with her, or vice versa, ever had a brief time, even for a few minutes, where you wanted to be single again? Well, listen, we've been together. Laura and I have been together since I've been 15. So, we were literally kids when we started dating. And I'm 42 now. So we've had horrific times, of course. We had to grow up together and learn who we are individually, while also learning to be in a relationship, while also redeciding as we got older if we were the right people for each other. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not the same person you are when you're 15 as you are at 19, 23, 27, 35. You know what I mean? Like, you change. You grow up. At 15, I didn't know who I was. I had no idea. And over the years, of course, I've made all kinds of mistakes. And Laura has too. I definitely think I've put her through more than she's put me through. But yeah, we've had wars, of course. We've had just some terrible fights. Nothing has ever gotten physical. I can't imagine laying a finger on her. I could never do anything like that. Our fights have been personality stuff and relationship stuff. And, like any normal couple, a lot of stress when you live together comes from financial stuff. And I've been open about this. I haven't been the most faithful husband in my lifetime. But no, it just took me a long time to just really understand where she was coming from and the value and importance of understanding the other side. Like, I just came from such a place where I wanted to be heard. And once I started listening, then I started being heard more. You just kind of realize that relationships are a give and a take. And thankfully, Laura was willing to allow me the time to kind of grow up and figure out who I am and figure out, what kind of man I ultimately want to be for her. And at the same time, it's not like Laura's void of mistakes, but if I would want her to forgive me for things, then I would obviously have to, be able to forgive. And I think that's one of the things about a relationship that I'm the most happy about or the most pleased about is that it's real. I mean, and what I mean by that is it's easy to celebrate. Like, anybody can celebrate the good times. Anybody can have fun at a party. But how do you get through the bad times? Do you come through the really dark times together? And when it's the darkest and you stick your hand out for that person, are they there? And Laura and I both know that in, the darkest of hours, I'm there for her. She's there for me. And to me, that's a real relationship. I've always said that, like, I don't think things as menial as let's say, like sex, for example. I don't think sex is a reason why someone should be together, nor is it a reason why someone should end a relationship. And with Laura and I, it's just always been such a growing process and a learning process about each other that eventually you get to the point where the relationship transcends beyond being boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife. And eventually you just have this partner in life. You just have this person that is there for you and you're there for them. And whatever you're going to go through, they're going to be there with you. You can probably hear it in my voice when I talk about it. It's a very powerful thing to me. And it means a lot to me. And she's an amazing, amazing person. And we have been through so much. And yeah, of course, we've had bad times, 100%. And I'm thankful for those bad times. And I think she would tell you the same. Because it just told us who we really are. Who we really are. So, yes, it's a great question, by the way. And a lot of times when I share these stories and stuff, I get in the habit of sharing, a lot of positive stories that end with positive resolve. And it's just because in general, I'm a positive person. So I just want to share with you guys the things that mean things to me. A lot of times they're positive stories. So yeah, in no way am I trying to portray Laura and I as some perfect couple that's never had a dark day, because that's not the truth either. But I think we're perfect in the way that we're perfect for each other, So, great question, though. It's a very good question. Jimmy from Ohio says, I'm not sure if you know, but Ryan is really opening up publicly about his substance abuse issues. My question is simple. Was anyone else on Paranormal State using drugs? Well, Jimmy, is anybody else in the world using drugs? I mean, of course. I mean, drugs are a big category. And I put alcohol, in the category of drugs, weed in the category of drugs, Adderall in the category of drugs. Obviously, those pills are in the category of drugs. I would say on Paranormal State, between cast and crew, 75% of somebody was using something at some point. I mean, and that's not abnormal for any film shoot I've ever been on, especially for a traveling one over the course of time. That's just part of the environment. And I know I'm not supposed to say that. I'm sure, people would freak out for me saying it, especially in the industry, but that's just true. It's, some people, can't just, sleep well or shut down when they have to, and they get stoned. They smoke up, and that does it. And some people just can't find the energy they need, so they take Adderall, and that does it for them. Some people can't travel; they're beat up, so they take the pills, and it starts there. And that also can be a way to up the overall social, the hangout. It makes things funner, I guess. I mean, so there's a million reasons to use, and people do it constantly. And if you're trying to stay sober, it's difficult to do it on a traveling, moving television set because of the prevalence of drugs and how readily available it is. But do people do it? Sure. Were there also people in Paranormal State that were completely sober? Sure, absolutely. And I'm talking cast and crew. But I would say 75% of the cast and crew combined was a consistent drug user of something. And, you can decide, your own conclusions from that. And the reason I don't just jump into all this stuff with names and details and dates is I think there's a proper forum for that. And I think the book format is probably the best because you can get very, very detailed. But I'm not avoiding any of this stuff. I just, I also want to be, mindful to a degree and realize that, there are personal conversations that have to happen between me and other people, and not even just Ryan, just other people that are involved with all that stuff before I would feel comfortable talking about certain things. But I'm not afraid to talk about any of it. There was nothing on Paranormal State that I personally did that I feel any shame over whatsoever. I had a blast. I thought it was a great experience. It's unfortunate how it all ended. It ended in a really, really bad way. And there'll be a time to really talk about that in great detail. But as far as Ryan talking about, opening up and talking about things, my feelings are the same as they were in the last Q&A, which is I haven't listened to his stuff. I haven't read it or watched it. I do hear that he's talking about it. I think Ryan has a long way to go. I always want to believe there's a road of redemption back for anybody. But I think Ryan's road of redemption, I think he would agree to, involves more than just talking about things. It's a long road back, and there's no reason for him and I to talk right now. He's got to focus on him until it's time to focus on others. And you don't get into the situation that he got into without needing a lot of work. So, yes, other people were using. Yes, other people partied. Yes, other people partook. And that's very, very natural and normal. We are all adults. When I met those guys in season 2, Taddy had just graduated. None of them were even in college, And as far as the crew goes, I mean, again, these are grown men. It was nobody's job to sit anybody down and have any kind of discussions nightly with them as to what they're going to go do in their spare time. We were all adults. We all knew what we were up against. We knew what the risks were, and everybody did what they did. They did what they did. So Paranormal State was what it was, and I guess that's all I could say is that that's just part of life. That whole culture, It's the same thing with relationships and sex and all that stuff. I mean, they have a joking name for it. It's called a locationship, where couples will have agreements that when they're on location, they can have locationships where they can do whatever they choose until that shoot is over. And that's because some of these shoots could last up to 8 months, and some couples decide that it's better to just be like, hey, I know what you're doing. You don't got to tell me the details, but I know, and I would rather just know that something's happening versus being lied to, versus someone cheating on somebody. Some people find that easier. Some people don't like that, and they like to just keep it real, and that's it. And they want to be very old school about it, and I completely understand that too. I don't think there's any blueprint to relationships. Whatever works for somebody works for them. I think that's a private thing. That's their business. But I think you would all be shocked by how much that goes on. I would say a traditional relationship is a rarity on a film set. It is very, very rare. And the reason I'm saying all this is I'm painting all this to let you know how strange and weird the world of a traveling film show is. The opportunities that are presented to you on a daily basis are so unlike the real world. And it's just a very, very strange world to try to lead a normal life in. So, yeah, it's a strange animal, and very weird things can happen, and a very bizarre way of life can easily be led when you're living on a film set for 8 months out of the year. So, yeah, that's my answer to all of that. So, Kelly from Rhode Island asks, how do you go about getting a TV show? Kelly, there is no roadmap. There's a million different ways to doing it. It is extremely difficult. Sometimes it just happens overnight and things come together. And sometimes things never come together. And sometimes it can take, 8, 9, 10 years to get a sure thing together. I was just reading this article. It's not a TV show, but it was a movie, which should have been even easier to make. Jeff Tremaine, who created and directed Jackass and all of the Jackass spin-offs, is who directed The Dirt from Motley Crue. And The Dirt was turned into a script over a decade ago. And Jeff Tremaine has been trying to make that movie since 2013. So, it's taken him 6 years. And before that, there was 4 years that they were trying to get it made and they couldn't get it made. In fact, Machine Gun Kelly auditioned 6 times. 6 different times in 3 different productions to be Tommy Lee. With Motley Crue behind it, all the power in the world as far as the directorship goes, having great talented actors on board, all of that. And it took them almost a decade to get that film made. So that'll tell you how hard things can be. But as far as how do you get a TV show, you have an idea and you pitch it to networks and platforms. And if you're lucky, it'll fall right in their wheelhouse of what they're looking for. And if you're really lucky, they're ready to go right now. They want to make it right now. It's a very, 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 very hard gig, and it takes longevity. That's the best answer I could give you. It takes being around and the ability to just keep pitching. And as my old manager said, to get in the way of the idea and its destination, to be around and to get in the middle of it. That's the most honest answer that I could give you. Okay, Rick from Scranton, PA asked, based on the experience where you were almost shot, do you now own a gun? Rick, I do not. And maybe I should. I would probably feel more comfortable if I did, but I don't. And the reason I don't is I have fairly decent security and a lot of neighbors, but I personally don't own a weapon. That could change tomorrow because I would like to own one for my own place. But no, I don't. And I would like to think my neighborhood is safe enough not to need one, but that's a knock on wood thing, I think about it all the time, though. Like I said, I go back and forth. I assume this is based off the Christchurch podcast, but I just go back and forth. So, Melanie from Calgary asks if I feel like the government stages events like Christchurch as false flags to either distract from a current event or to drum up support for targeted legislation. My answer to that would be probably to all of them. Do I think that happened at Christchurch? No. I think Christchurch was very real. I think it was what it was. But I don't put anything past our government. We've been staging false flags for a very, very long time. It's only going to be an idea that they hone in and make even better. And like any other, process, over time, you get better at it. So over time, they're going to get better at false flags. So, yes, I think our government does still do that. No, I don't think Christchurch was a false flag. Kevin from Chicago asked, do you feel like your family's case is now ultimately resolved? Absolutely not, Kevin. It is not in a good place. Out of respect for them, I won't say anything further. But I guess that's all I can say right now. So, Patricia from Perth, Australia asks, Had the fry-eating billionaire come through the door, what was your plan to subdue him? That's a funny question. Um, Good question, good question, good question. I don't know. Well, I guess what I was thinking is I'm just going to lay into him with every ounce of my weight that I have, try to get him to the ground and hold him until the cops could get there. Like I said, I'm not like, some street fighting badass that, knows MMA or anything like that. I could definitely handle my own just out of size and strength. And I was so amped up at that time. I definitely know that had that door opened, whoever was coming through it was going to get laid out. And I was going to hit them with everything that I had. That was a really intense time. My heartbeat was pumping so fast that in that moment, thankfully it never came to that. But no, my plan was just to hit him as hard as I could. And whether that was with, my fist or my body or whatever, I was just going to make sure that they went down and I got them in a position where I could, guillotine them and hold them there until the cops got there. That's all I was really thinking, to be honest. I know it's a straightforward answer. Maybe that's what you're looking for, but that is the truth. And Colin from Saskatoon, Canada asks, is it true that you're an amateur magician? I would not say I'm an amateur magician in any way. I know some magic tricks. A couple are pretty cool. But, you spend any time on the web looking at where magic has gone, and people are just insane with their magic, especially close magic, which in my opinion is the only, true pure form of magic, which is close magic, which is where they do card tricks like 6 inches from your eyes and you can't figure out what's going on. So, no, I'm not an amateur magician, but when I was younger, I was really into magic, and I know enough tricks that I could keep you busy for a half hour and you could enjoy yourself, but it's nothing. No, I'm a really poor man's learning to be almost amateur magician. And that was only from spending about like 8 months out of my life on it, and I got okay. So, but I do like close magic. I do enjoy it. I'm a big fan of Penn and Teller. Their live shows are incredible. And they're just interesting guys. So, yeah, those are great questions this time, guys. Really, really better questions, I thought, this time than last time. And again, on these Q&As, you can ask me anything you want at all. And I will either answer directly, or if I feel like I can't answer, I'll tell you why. But 99.99% of everything, I have no problem just answering. And last but not least, my review of The Dirt. At first, I had this really long, intricate, detailed review of The Dirt, Motley Crue's The Dirt on Netflix. And then I got a chance to watch it for the second time, in which I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try to watch this as just a normal movie viewer, a fan, and not, try to break it down. And when I did it that way, I enjoyed it a lot more for what it was. There were a lot of things that I knew were kind of wrong story-wise. And I did this with the NWA biopic, where by the time I got done, picking it apart and talking to Laura about it, all the stuff that I had objections with, she didn't even notice, nor did she even care. And I don't want to be that guy, At the end of the day, what I can say is I thought there were some weird casting choices, but I was happy enough with the cast that I enjoyed watching the film. I thought MGK again shined huge as Tommy Lee. I wish his character would have had more in the film. But what's hard about it, the one criticism that I will give to it that's really, really, that would be really hard to pull off in a 2-hour film, is it goes from these ultra party moments of the debauchery of 1985, into these life, altering moments that they have where Vince lost his daughter and got into a car wreck, and, Nikki Sixx dies of heroin and he's brought back on a table through adrenaline shots, and, Tommy Lee is going through his struggle with Locklear, and there's all this stuff that's meant to be super deep. And it's so weird because you kind of go from this really light and fluffy dick and fart joke type of humor, and then we're supposed to be sucked into like this PTA type of emotion, and it did not work for me in both watches, where I didn't care enough about the characters to really get what they were going through. It was just so surface, and addiction is just not a surface thing. Losing your daughter to stomach cancer is just not a surface thing. Mick Mars having a degenerative bone disease and realizing that that's going to get him in the end, and he's got to make a life now with this disease, and he's around these kids that are he's in a band with him. Like, these are all like huge conceptual things, huge conceptual things, and it just was so thin. It was so thin, and that was hard for me in both watches. Having said that, out of 10, I would give it a 6 out of 10. It's worth a watch, definitely. If you don't know anything about the band, you'd probably get a kick out of it. MGK does the best job out of all the actors. I think his role as Tommy Lee is really fun to watch. It's interesting if you're nostalgic from that era. It's cool to see just the outfits and the way people dressed and acted at that time. I very much remember that time period. So yeah, I really wanted it to be more. At first I was like, this thing is bad. Like, bad isn't bad, not bad meaning good, And then after watching it again with a different view, it was entertaining. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. Let me know what you thought about it. Thank you guys for all the questions. Again, I got no other plans other than to be honest with you guys. So ask me anything you want in the future as well. Thanks again for the questions. Thanks again for listening to episode 29 of the In a Crowded Room podcast, our second Q&A, and I will be back soon with more. All the best.